I will be just sharing my screen with this one. Hopefully I will be doing that. Just give me a sec. Okay, sorry about that. The screen. And if I change screens, can you see my other screen? No, you're still seeing yourself. See, I'm not good in technologies. It's a good thing I'm an expert in a different area, not in technologies. I will. Okay. Is it working now? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's start. I want to just pull up my notes real quick too. Okay, oh, sorry about that. Just a second. I know, it's chaotic. You won't regret it.
If you ask me, Veronica, I actually love cows, so this is fun for me.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad. Okay, now you hopefully can see it again, and then I pulled up my notes on my phone. See, because it was complicated. But yes, we will be talking today about gender bias, and I'm glad that at least we have multiple people today and representatives of different sexes, different genders, and hopefully we can have some good discussions. But of course, I pulled up some slides for you just to give you a tiny little bit of theory, because I believe in the fact that everything is based on science, and theory is better and at least makes some sense. So yeah, let's move on. And I wanted to start with saying that gender bias in the workplace is complex and contextual, as you can see here on the slide. Wait, I can maybe pull it up on the full screen for you. There you go. Is it on the full screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Should be better. Yes, so it's complex because it can show up in places that we never expected it to show up, not only in hiring process, promoting process, or firing process. It can be found in many different places, basically during the whole life in the corporate world. And of course, it's contextual, because while the same standards and features and characteristics can be a disadvantage in one situation and can be an advantage in another situation. An example of it is that, for instance, you can be very, what's the example? You can be, oh wait, somebody wants to join us, popped up. Let them in. Oh, there's Robin. Hi, Robin. Yeah, thanks for joining. We just started, and I was talking about gender biases in the workplace, and I was trying to find an example of a contextual, how contextual gender biases are. And yeah, for instance, you are empathetic. That's the word I was looking for. If a person is empathetic, it's usually attributed to a feminine person, and it can be an advantage if it comes to building teams. And it also can be a disadvantage when it comes to promotion, because an empathetic person doesn't come across as strong and independent. So that is why bias is considered an error. It's an error in assessment and an error in seeing people for not completely and fully who they are. That is why we're talking about it. And there is some fun stats. I thought I'd pull it up for you. That women are, well, it's fun to learn it. It's not fun in terms of content. That women are still just over 10% of Fortune 500 CEOs, even though they receive half of college education degrees. So it looks like there has been some progress done in education, but there's still not as much in the corporate world. That's exactly why I'll repeat myself, is important. That is why it affects all people, and actually men included, but the patterns of biases are repeatedly influencing women more. And when talking about gender bias, it's important to understand two things about gender. So we are, when saying gender, we mean two things within the gender term: gender identity and gender expression. So gender identity is more of what we're used to understand under a term gender. So it's how we identify ourselves. I identify as a woman, I go by she, her pronouns, and that is my gender identity. And there's a gender expression. You must have seen people who don't really fit in the social norms, and their gender expression might deviate from their gender identity a little bit. For example, you can see masculine women, and that might surprise you, or you can see feminine men, which leads to assumptions and um, other ideas about this person that are necessarily true. And what is important here, as I just told you in my example, we have feminine men and masculine women. They don't necessarily align, gender identity and gender expression, but it's important to understand them for the whole complexity of what gender is. It's not only how we identify ourselves, it's also how we present in the world. I promise you there won't be as much theory left. And yes, why do we discuss it and why it matters at work? Because at work we are dealing with assessments, promotions, and categorizing people. Oh, there's somebody else joining. I heard another pop. Oh no, there's a chat.
This is
Oh,
just a IA thing.
Yeah,
Don't
that's fine.
that.
Yeah. I'll go back to the full screen. Yes, we are dealing with assessments, and there is often a certain trait of skills that is traditionally associated with men or women. If it's associated with women, we call it feminine, of course. If with men, we call it masculine. And yet, even though we call it that way, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it is, and that's how all women are, and that's how all men are. That is why bias doesn't let our mind assess everybody wholly and completely for what they are. What's important here is to understand that we're all biased, and this is not something bad. It's something that our mind is prone to because our mind was trained and taught to categorize. And this is one of the ways we are categorizing people. It's not bad at its nature, but it's bad when it comes to dealing with people and to equality that we are trying to build within the workplace. That is exactly why we should try and catch those biases and get rid of them for as much as you can. And yeah, there's a small exercise for you to see how we associate even words, not even necessarily actions, but just words with different genders. There is assertive, independent, helpful, risk taking, supportive, and friendly. Um, if you want, I can ask you. We can do a little interactive, but I'm quite sure I know which words you associated with which gender. But if somebody feels like saying it out loud, you go ahead. I'll be only glad to do so.
Can I ask you, Veronica? Do you think that Ginacy and me will have the same opinion of that?
Let's hear it out.
You want to go
How
first,
would
Gina?
you? How would you associate them?
I think that's 50%, 50%. Maybe we
Yeah.
can agree like I don't know we agree on half of it. Okay, I can go first, of course.
Go ahead.
Assertive. Um, Woman related.
Mm-hmm.
Independent. Sounds more like a man for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Um, yeah, I'm thinking of a man. Um, Man related. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
risk-taking woman,
Mm-hmm.
supportive woman, friendly. Oh my gosh, friendly for me is both. I don't know if that's a good answer. Like I just try to like to put it like in
Yeah, there's
extremes,
no
you
right
know,
or
like
wrong, but
yeah, I try
I,
to like
will-
to pick
I,
one.
I'm with
mm-hmm.
you. I'm with you, Jenny. Assertive for me is woman related. Independent is man.
Mm-hmm.
Helpful is woman, though. Risk taking is man. I think we differ in those two. Supportive. I don't know both. I'm friendly both.
Mm-hmm. And how
Yeah.
about friendly? This one is the hardest one just yet.
It is.
I don't know because then it's fun because when you talk about supportive, I
Mm-hmm.
see more support woman to man or man to woman, but man to
Yeah.
man supportive or woman to woman, not really.
Interesting. How come?
Because I don't know, these words have maybe in a specific direction or
Mm-hmm.
intention, let's say. And if we're talking about supporting each other in a male to
Mm-hmm.
male culture,
Yep.
it's more, let's say, fluid in competition, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
While
Right.
male to woman and woman to male, there is more like an intention of connection,
Mm-hmm.
of giving and receiving. So that's how. So basically, and
Yeah.
friendly, I don't know. Friendly can be so vague, but in supportive, I see that really clearly.
Yeah. No, the thing is, as I said, there is no right or wrong answer. But if we take a bigger group, even here we had most of the adjectives associated with the same gender. I think we had just one or two differences. And if we take a bigger group, the scale will be even more representative. And usually, as you said, like assertive is a woman, independent is usually a man, and you did mention this. And actually, I wouldn't even go on with the adjectives. I'd like to stop on independent because it's a good example of how, of first of all, why the bias um, is essential to discuss and how it reflects and has consequences. Because independency is usually a core characteristic for a person to be promoted, especially if you are being promoted from an individual contributor to a manager. You need to be independent and do your own work and then manage other people. And while in a man, being independent is something that is valued a lot, in a woman, it's often considered as she is too ballsy. She would walk over people's heads. She only cares about job. So she's like ruthless and heartless. Usually it has bad connotations. And it's interesting because it's literally the same characteristic in a person, but in terms of different contexts, something we discussed in the first slide, context of gender, it becomes a completely different things. Um, and again, for one person, it plays as an upside, and for another, as a downside, which doesn't seem quite fair, right? And this categorization that our brain is leading us to leads to stereotypes that appear. And after we've met um, one person in our life, we've been to a first job, second job, third job. We met hundreds of people, and when we find similar patterns in their behaviors, even though it's not necessarily who they completely are, but this is how we perceive their behaviors. If you have met um, two bossy women managers, you would think women are harsh in the workplace when they get to managerial positions. And when you get a chance to vote for one, you maybe will not. But if we roll this ball down to the first interactions with the manager, with the like harsh and strong and independent again, female managers, were they actually harsh, or was it your perception of a woman in this position? And would you have categorized the man on the same position as a risk taking, or as a somebody who cares about his career? So this is always important to understand if it's something that is actually happening, or if it's what I will call further your gut feeling. And yes, bias can be identified in patterns. That's a good one. And that's the first part of the probably answers blog of today's session, is how we deal with it all. And first one is how to spot it. How do you think you can spot bias? Can you spot it from one individual case? Question for you.
I didn't get your question, Veronica.
Do you think bias can be identified from an individual case? For example, a person, let's say you're an HR, and a person comes to you and says, I was discriminated against, somebody is biased against me. Can you identify it, and can you claim that it is true from one individual case? What do you think? Again, no right or wrong. Let me look at you, because when I have a presentation open, I can't really look at you.
I'm not sure actually how to properly answer that.
Sorry, I'm having just network issues.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I got the complete part of the question, but
Yanni, maybe you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just asking if you can. You're muted. If you're muted, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm here having a conversation, but half muted. I'm gonna say half because I'm recording the session.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, okay. Well, I'm not sure if if I have experienced something or I've heard something that could help me with to identify it. Yeah, probably I have like a situation that I had in the past, and it was when I was in a call center. We used to ask each other like how much we earn, so we have we have information from each other about what was the amount that people earn. But yeah, it was more or less related about the time people were there, working in the same role. But sometimes we can tell some differences, mainly but because of that. But about gender, I'm trying to think about if I have experienced something like that, or heard about it, and I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Fine.
My take is like, I mean, I cannot. If someone is coming to me for a claim that, hey, I'm being harassed or I'm suffering from some kind of discrimination or whatever, the only thing that I can do is just acknowledge that.
Right.
And then get more interest in what is happening. Of course, I'm just receiving biased information about whatever event that happened. My duty, if I'm a human resource agent or whatever, my duty is just to make more investigation and clear that bias.
Right. Well, my proposal is similar to what you said. So again, this is not the only correct way to assess biases. Maybe there is a way to assess them individually, but usually it's quite hard. So how we approach them is assessing biases collectively and in patterns. Because if you take one individual situation, it might be hard. But if you take 10 of them, it's easier to see the pattern and to see if the result and outcome is the same. So maybe there is a bias happening right there. This slide I really like because, again, it's practical. First one, it says clarify when you're making an assessment about people in the workplace. It's about thinking about conditions under which we make assessment and potential consequences it may have. Does our assessment influence people's hiring process, people's promotion process, who will be included or excluded from a meeting, who will be given extra day off? So what is the climate, I would probably say here, of your assessment and of your decision? And then the second, that has three bullet points under it, is to recognize the conditions in which bias is most likely to happen. First one is there is ambiguity in the decision-making process itself. It's about not precise criteria. There you go, that's the word. When you have not, let's look at this example. If it's a hiring process, you have a job description. If you have not written job description correctly, aligned with the equity, diversity, and inclusion policies, or if you haven't consulted with somebody who knows how to include everybody in the description, you might have already left some people out in the description, on the description stage. For example, if you're writing down the characteristics of a person you would like to hire, if we scroll back to the adjective slide, we might see that unwillingly, subconsciously, we may end up writing a job description that fits a man more or fits a woman more. That is exactly why even choosing the adjectives, such as simple things, is important, because even at the stage of job description, you may cut off a good chunk of people who will not even apply on this position, because after reading, they will associate their requirements with not themselves and will never apply.
Hey, Veronica.
Yeah.
Then I lied. That's something very common here.
You did? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Interesting.
Yeah. That's something very common. Hey, I mean, here you can find out some job descriptions, some role positions
Yep.
that are specifically for women or are specifically for men. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Do
that's
they
something still
write
here
it?
common. What you said? Sorry.
Do they openly write it in the description? Like, we are
Yeah.
looking for women to do this
Yes.
kind of job. Oh, really?
Yes.
Because the thing is, in Europe,
I'm not
it's
sure.
forbidden.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, here it's very common.
Mm-hmm.
It's like normalized, and it's not like a big deal to ask
Yeah.
for a specific gender for a specific
Yeah.
position. And but and it is because of that
And
that I,
Veronica,
I, I
just for
didn't I
bringing
didn't notice that. I mean, not I didn't notice it as a problem. I didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why.
and
Yeah, you were saying?
we're talking about the a context in which, because we are both from Venezuela, Jill and me are from the same
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
and I remember like having female friends there, like
Mm-hmm.
just making breast surgeries
Yep.
because that was a thing that gave them more confidence to get a job.
Exactly.
So
That's one of the consequences of patriarchy.
mhm.
And yeah, maybe women who would have been completely fine with their breasts, they still have to adapt. And I never judge, and I propose for us not to judge women who do that, because it's a complex decision, and it's not necessarily a decision made on its own. And but yes, this first like A point is also interesting to look at from Europe's perspective, because in Europe it's forbidden to write in the job description that we are looking for a specific sex or gender. You can't write it exactly like that, but you can vaguely put in the description that we are looking for somebody who would be independent, confident, risk taking, grabbing the opportunities. Choose the adjectives that would fit one sex more than another. And I had an interesting example from Canada. Um, that said, there was a job description, and in the end of it, so where they were describing the informal culture of their workplace, they said that our workplace likes to have not workplace, our company likes to have corporate team meetings for all of you to come together, and we usually go to bonding, play hockey during those meetings. And this is an interesting example. I find it interesting because it doesn't directly say anything, and you can't blame an employer for putting this in a job description because, like, technically, legally, they're not doing anything wrong. But team buildings in form of a hockey game, it already gives you a hint that the majority of team is probably first of all male, middle age, and probably Canadian, which already excludes so many people. And imagine if you were just as good at your job, but you would never go to the team meetings just because you don't feel like ice hockey is your thing. Would you still be completely included in the team? There is a big question mark on there. Yeah, and this like first A point is about how there are ways of still excluding people with words, not even directly saying that they want a specific person. Um, yeah, I propose we move on. So the second one is the ambiguity of how you'll make a decision. It's about the pressure that we might have when the boss says that you have to close the position by the end of the week, or you have to choose who's going on that business trip because we have to pay for their tickets tomorrow and you got to go to finances and figure that out. So when they're rushing you into taking decisions, or there is a pressure of taking a decision, for example, if you do not give me the layoff list, you'll be on layoff list yourself. So those are the things that impact our decision because they might rush it, they might need biased, and might not let us see the situation at its full. That is why bias is complex, again, referring to the first slide, because even though it's in our brain, it's also influenced by external factors and the context we are making a decision in. And the third one is when your definition of success are narrow, is when, let me look it up in my notes for a sec because I don't want to misinterpret it. Yes, exactly. So when the description of who, let's say, will be promoted is way too narrow. For example, in the gaming industry, we only want to find a designer who has worked in the gaming industry before. Why do we have that requirement? Because of what? Nobody might not even have asked that. Why do we want a designer from specifically game industry? If it's justified and if you need to work with some specific technical details that are not relevant to any other industry, that is totally fine. You can ask for it. But if it's just something that you have always had on your job description that has been copy and paste and posted from a year to year and nobody has ever asked it and questioned it, this might be one of the biases because game industry is quite homogenous and even though the situation, as in many industries, is getting slowly better now, it's still mostly predominantly male dominated. And maybe by putting this such a narrow description in the requirement, you're again narrowing down the pool of people who will be even applying, because if you're a good designer from another field, you don't feel like applying because you feel like you already do not fit and do not fulfill all the requirements. And from a different field, you could be from a beauty sphere that is predominantly female. You could be from education, again, predominantly female, but you can be as good of a designer. So yeah, think about that too. Have you had any examples of that? Maybe I liked how you gave me the real life cases.
Oof. I mean, the more I heard you, the more I think, oh my gosh, we need to review ourselves. And I'm speaking, I'm including myself even though, because I had experience of being in a manager position, and then I can like remember softly about some of the
Yep.
role descriptions I had to write, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm realizing here with you, oh my gosh, I'm also I have been a victim
We're learning. It's
yes,
okay.
not only a victim, but trying to keep the system, and it is not good.
Yeah.
But it is
Yeah.
it is interesting. This is really interesting because I haven't noticed that those patterns that you are mentioning on this is a self-assessment too, to recognize that
Mm-hmm.
those things are
Yeah.
there. I can't
Mm-hmm.
properly like put an example or provide an example, but
Mm-hmm.
you're right.
Yeah. I'll just switch to the next slide because we're already started kind of discussing about criteria and how it's important to keep them sharp and precise.
Yeah.
Max, welcome. Any other examples,
hi.
thoughts? No, no. Okay. I think we'll be moving on here. And there is a case. Actually, I'm wrapping up the presentation part with it, but I'm actually joined on the most fun part. So there's a case. I will look up to my notes because there is a reference on a study. It's a study by Alman and Cohen, two researchers who made a study on resume performance. So they prepared two resumes, exactly the same. The only difference was that one resume had more education in it relevant to the job, and the other had more experience relevant to the job. And they brought it to the like commission, a committee, hiring committee. There you go. They brought it to the hiring committee and they said, "What is your criteria? What is most important um, criteria for the job? What are you valuing more, education or experience?" What do you think they answered in this first case?
I would say experience.
Yep. I think I'll move on because in the first case, it doesn't really matter what they answered. In this specific case, they thought education. That's what matters more. So the answer to the first iteration, the first round of resumes was education is more important. We are choosing to hire a person with education. In the second round, they added names to it. So they added a man's name to the previously preferred resume with more education. And they added a woman's name to the resume that was previously rejected with more experience. What do you think happened here? Did something change? Did situations stay the same? Whom did they choose?
These two
Thoughts,
factors
thoughts,
together,
thoughts?
I don't think they're relevant. It's like if for
Hmm.
this person is more
Yeah, but
important
we are in the
education, is
culture
that
that we
okay? I will
are
keep
in.
my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
they got the man.
You think they got the man? You're right. They did get the man because he has
Where do
more
we live?
education. That's because he had more education in this case, and they did say initially that education is what they value here. And the third one, I already spoiled you an answer, because in the third case, when they switched and put a woman's name by the previously preferred resume with more education and a man's name with previously declined resume with more experience, they chose a more experienced resume of a man. This is an interesting case, and I find it interesting because it shows you how the criterion is shifted to match the gut reaction, and that is one of the examples of how bias is reflecting in our real life. So what I mean, initially they had a clear criteria, but because our gut reaction and that inner feeling that we might not be even aware of, it's so strong that it might lead us and prone us to even changing criteria as we go. So that is one of the things that is happening, and it's been researched. And I'm sure if you talk to HR people or like recruiters, they might spot some similar things. But again, as with any biases, it's hard to spot from one specific case. But if you keep seeing patterns and analyzing them, you will keep spotting those biases, and by spotting them, this is the first step to removing them and to getting rid of them. That was the end of my slides. I will close the presentation here, and let's move on to discussion. What are you thinking of it all? I like how Jenny started saying that she spotted some of her behaviors. And honestly, thanks for sharing that, because acknowledging that you have done something that you might consider wrong or not completely right now is takes courage and is also important. And many people skip that step. And yeah, I think it's a great safe space to do so. Just like me, I have done so many mistakes before, and you know what? We will still be doing mistakes in the future, but hopefully less now, and we'll be more aware. Yeah, I took the stage again. So your reflection, what do you think of it?
As I said, I'm impressed. And from the past things I did without having, I mean, unconsciously. And I think, yeah, like not in like because I wanted to be mean, or no, that wasn't of
No.
course the intention of that. It was because, of course, I wanted to a specific profile for those positions. For example, when I was on charge of finding someone for that position I explained. Um, but of course, we're not considering uh, people's feelings actually, or even the organization reputation, because that's also something
Mm-hmm.
also that will be reflected
Yep.
there. Um, I
It's
have
called a brand of employer.
the what?
A brand of an employer.
Oh yeah.
Something that big companies actually finally starting to care of.
Yes, and when I was trying to find a job before starting in Trusted, I was also reading. I mean, I read so many job positions over there and applied to a lot, tons of opportunities, and I was like, oh, this is hard. These people is asking this, and I'm not qualified for this. I mean, for the use of well, you said that if it is using certain words or certain sentences, you are probably afraid of applying to that position.
Right.
What can I say? I like it. I like the
And yeah,
presentation. I really enjoy it. It was
it's subconscious
great.
on the both sides. And because when a hiring manager or recruiter is compiling and putting together the job description, they, as you said, don't mean bad. They just want to find a specific person. But because they don't have those EDI principles in mind, and usually it's not very common to consult with EDI team, even if there is one on every step of the way. We're still at the beginning of this journey. That is why the bias happens at the very first step of the recruitment process. And then if a person ends up somehow seeing it, they will still not apply from their side because it's already biased. And it's again subconscious. And as you may have known, I didn't even step on this here in the presentation. It's such a common fact that women are more likely to not apply for a job if they um, don't fulfill one single criteria from the whole list. So they're more likely to not apply at all. And men are more likely to still shoot their shot. Yeah, any other reflections, thoughts, discussions?
I want to go back, Veronica, to one of the first things that you mentioned today. It was regarding those statistics, like just 10% of women of
Yep,
CEOs are women or something like that.
yep.
Uh, I mean, for me, it's still unclear till what point is due to this bias topic that we are talking about, or till what patriarchy, systematic culture it's there, and or even about the needs of the organization regarding how they expect, statistically speaking, a woman to behave in confront to a man. Are we sure this is due to bias? Maybe it's something like, statistically speaking, just per the character of woman versus men.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, people want more men in leadership or command and control positions.
This is a topic for potentially a different session for us to have because we're talking more here about the it's called glass ceiling or sticky floor. There are different terms to describe why women do not perform as well in the corporate world. But it's actually so hard to assess. And for maybe Max, who's joined later, Gustavo is talking about the stats that I showed at one of the first slides that it's only 10% of women in the region of 500 most successful CEOs of the world, even though women are half of the successful college graduates in the US. So it's about this gap between college graduates that we have, and only 10% get to the CEO positions. But if dipping feed into that really quickly as a complex reason. First of all, we touched on it just now. Women apply less for the positions, and men just go for it and apply, even though they don't care as much about if they will get accepted or not. And women tend to not apply at all, even if they don't fulfill just a few requirements. Even though HR says, I don't know if you've heard that, but I've heard that from multiple HRs. They say that if you fulfill all the requirements, you're actually overqualified and you shouldn't be applying because you are over this position. That is just a fun fact. But yes, it starts from a hiring point. Next one is an important, and from my perspective is a core reason, is caregiving. Usually it's on a woman, and often woman steps off her career for at least a couple of years to take care of a baby, and potentially then to again take care of elderly family members. They're usually the ones to take sick leave days, to take days without pay, to take extra days off. So they are usually the ones sacrificing their careers to take care of other family stuff, and while men are uninterrupted in pursuing their careers. And of course, there is the component of bias that we've just been discussing, and how within the company women are promoted less for multiple different reasons. So it is a complex thing, and I would not be claiming that that is fair, because for objective reasons, and again, research and real life cases show that women do have less access to managerial positions, and they are still well qualified for them. But we can't find a one simple answer to that and one simple solution. That is why it's so complex. And that is why patriarchy is not so easy to tackle, because just to even learn and understand all of it, you gotta dedicate a lot of time to it. And then next step is to admit and then maybe try and fix. And on a societal level, well, let's be honest, even on the corporate level of one team, if it's a big team, it's a hard change. And on a societal level, even so. So yeah, there you go. I hope that somewhat answers.
Yeah, of course, and gave me even more complexity than what I thought it was.
That's what I do. That's my job.
I appreciate because
Yeah. Any
guys, I
other
need
things?
to leave because I need to prepare a meeting that I'm having in 10 minutes. But thank you a lot
Of
for this,
course.
Vero. This was really insightful. You're in Lisbon,
Yeah.
right?
I'm not
I'm going
anymore.
next
I
week to
actually
you.
flew into
Okay,
a different country today.
hope you're bad. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Well, thanks everybody. Yeah, we'll be wrapping up, and I'll talk to you in Discord if you need me. And yeah, have a good night or day or whatever you have. Bye.